The region of Paldea is a large, open world with tons of locations to explore and nooks and crannies to discover. And within those nooks and cranberries, there are plenty of rare Pokemon to get your hands or sides on.
Yeah, that's very true, Collector. There are, of course, 400 Pokemon in the Pokedex, which I'd have to assume is going to be the norm going forward, and among them are naturally going to be some Pokemon that are pretty rare. And quite frankly, in some of those deeply hidden away areas, you're going to find a few certain Pokemon. And today, we're going to talk about those Pokemon, among some others, as we deduce what the top 10 rarest Pokemon are to find in Paldea.
So I'll start us off here with number 10, which may seem like an easy one to some of you. I want to stress here that we are doing this from the perspective of someone playing the game without knowing everything there is to know about it. So keep that in mind for some of these entries. Our lowest spot on the list belongs to Spiritomb. Now, this one isn't really rare in the sense of making it appear, as there are 3 fixed locations for it to spawn on Glaciato Mountain. However, that's a location many trainers aren't going to be hitting up early on, and unless you know these exact spots, you could be searching on the mountain for quite a while before you ever find one. In a game where random encounters no longer exist, you're bound to have entries like this, so do me a favor and don't put too much stock into this entry, as we've got plenty of other hard to get Pokemon regardless of if you know how to get them or not.
Seems like no matter what game this damn thing appears in, Spiritomb is going to be a rough Pokemon to really get your hands on. It's not the hardest, judging by the fact that it's only opened our list today, but even then, it's setting the bar a little high. But the next duo Pokemon we're going to be talking about are Roaring Moon and Iron Valiant, the boss Paradox Pokemon if you don't think about the box art legendaries. So you may be wondering why these are harder to find than any of the other Paradox Pokemon. Well, those just sort of walk around in the overworld and are in a bit of abundance. These two, though, they're in a strange cave near the 3rd research station off to the side near a giant tree. It's easy to miss the cave's entrance since you'll have to squeeze through a bunch of oddly shaped rocks that are hiding the opening to the cave. And once you're in there, you'll have to hope you can get past the random ghost Pokemon that are waiting for you, while one of these bosses just takes its sweet time trying to spawn. It can be really annoying trying to get them to appear, and when you're not looking up the exact location of this cave, it's just as easy to miss even if you are scrubbing each and every corner of Area 0. It's sort of a perfect 9th entry of our list today.
Yeah, I know it took me quite a bit of time to get myself an Iron Valiant, but hey, you know, someone is going to let us know that they found one as soon as they entered the cave, so I guess we should just pack it in for the day. Is what I would say if I cared. Number 8 on our list is actually quite the funny juxtaposition for the 9th entry, as it comes in the form of Applin. Maybe this is just the Prime Directive and I, but I only ever found one Applin in my nearly 100 hours of playing. And how many did you find, Prime?
Oh, in my 110 hours, I still haven't come across one.
Exactly. And we're looking in the correct areas. This little guy will even pop up on the mini-map. I'll slam right on into every tree in the area and just nothing. Sure, it would probably show up a bit more with the use of a grass or dragon encounter sandwich, but saying, hey, this Pokemon would be easier to find if I just made it easier to find isn't really a good argument for what we're talking about here. Plus, we're backed up by the Pokedex listing it as rarely seen, so I feel very justified with Applin's position on this list.
I kind of hate Applin now. I would like to just dice it up with my scythes and throw it in a pie and bake it at 350 for like an hour, and boom! Maybe throw a little bit of a strudel on top, because I'm more of a Dutch apple pie kind of guy. Anyway, next up, in our 7th spot, is going to be a trio of Pokemon. Palmet, Bramblegast, and Rapska. These evolutions, while being incredibly tedious, aren't exactly clear to begin with. You have to let your Palmo, Bramblin, and Rellor walk around for about 1,000 steps using the new Let's Go feature, and once you've done that, you just need to level them up in its evolution time. Well, I know some people have definitely had that happen abruptly with their Palmo, if they really thought it was a cute Pokemon to use. I couldn't imagine having Rellor and Ramblin at the lead of your party just walking around taking down random Pokemon. So if you're unaware of these evolutionary methods, those 3 Pokemon end up becoming incredibly rare, and some people may not even see them until they're either on an opposing team or in some sort of Terra Raid battle. That said, it is possible to randomly end up with evolving one of these Pokemon and having no idea how you did it, so I guess the 7th spot is appropriate for it. What do you think, Collector?
Well, in addition to all of that, if you get too far from your Pokemon, which is likely to happen, they just go back to their Pokeball instead of teleporting to catch up with you, so I feel a lot of people just wouldn't leave them out for very long to begin with. Also, the evolutions are triggered by standard level up, so if you level them up while in Let's Go mode, you'll have to hope you have some candy on you, or you could just be waiting a tad bit longer, adding to the frustration of getting them. So I'll move on to number 6, being Paldean Tauros. But not the regular one, as I'm going to be talking about its Blaze and Aqua breeds. To this day, the only Aqua breed I've ever seen in-game was just a Ditto disguising itself as one. Luckily, some people have come through with Terra raids for me, but I'm just so disappointed I've never encountered it in the wild for myself, as they do look pretty awesome. Of course, these two can appear in outbreaks as well, but if you're just looking at regular encounters, there's usually just only one chilling with your standard Paldean Tauros, and since they don't really look that different from afar, it's totally possible if you're lucky enough to have one appear that you may even just run by it without ever knowing what you've done.
That was a pretty interesting first 5 entries for our list, I'd say. To all the people who are definitely still watching and didn't tap out about halfway through, we appreciate you greatly. The way we're starting our top 5 is with Rotom and all of its forms. That's right, its forms are in a way rarer than Rotom itself, as you'll need to find it randomly zooming around near Levincia or Porto Marinata, and it's not exactly easy to just trigger showing up unless you have a sandwich power and, whatever. Though, once you do happen across it, you'll then need to hope that the Rotom catalog shows up in Porto Marinata during an auction, and as far as I know, there's no way to force it to come up. That means all those forms could potentially be locked for quite a while. And of course, well, you need to know you're looking for that Rotom catalog. And again, we're not talking about using a guide here when we discuss these rarest Pokemon, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with Rotom being top 5 if you include its forms along with it. I mean, the fact that the catalog won't even appear until you get a Rotom in your box is just the cherry on top there. And speaking of ghosts that possess objects, we're going to be throwing Poltegeist in our number 4 spot. But just not any Poltegeist, I'm talking about the Big Kahuna antique form Poltegeist. So here's the deal, you get an antique form Sinistea, which is already hard enough as it is, as you can't really see underneath it, or not in any easy way that I know of. So you just need to catch a bunch of them and then test to see if your chipped pot will evolve any of them. Now at least there are fixed locations for both the chipped and cracked pots, but they're usually under just some random trees. So unless you happen to do that, your next best option is the auction once again, making it ever so slightly more annoying to get than many of the other Pokemon that appeared before it today.
I don't think the authentic Poltegeist is ever going to be easy to get, and naturally that isn't just by design, but also because it makes sense. Have you ever tried to find old, real booster packs of an EX series set of the Pokemon TCG? It's going to be not only hard to find, but totally too expensive to buy. That's another video idea for another day, though. Now, we have to get into the third rarest Pokemon. And once again, it's going to be multiple Pokemon. We've really been sort of copping out in that way, huh? Well, regardless, the 3 Mousehold and 3 section Dunsparce are here in this spot because they're actually really hard to get. As a matter of fact, the majority of people will only ever see the regular 4 mice and 2 stomachs of a Dunsparce, but believe me, this isn't just some weird rumor joke that we're trying to lie to you guys about. You've basically just got a 1 in 100 chance, or 1%, of having your Dunsparce and Tandemaus evolve into these special forms. There isn't actually anything different about them from what I understand, aside from the appearance, but still, doesn't that really make them all the more desirable?
I suppose humans tend to want what they can't have, and this completely random 1% chance is not going to help those that suffer from their desires the most. Maybe this wouldn't be a big deal if we still had the Legends Arceus mechanic of just chucking Pokeballs out in the overworld to catch hundreds of these fools. I guess Tandemaus has a slight advantage of being able to evolve slightly earlier, but even then you'll have to spend a lot of time leveling up so many of these Pokemon just to find this slightly different form, which I guess is a nice reward in its own right, especially if any of you manage to find a shiny version of them. So yeah, I suppose we can move into our runner-up spot being a 4-way tie between all of the Treasures of Ruin. These bad boys have some of the lowest catch rates of any Pokemon in the games, but also have the extra task of traveling all across the region to find the stakes that seal them away. Fortunately, all of the stakes for each Pokemon will be found in the area that their chamber is located. Most of them will just kinda be out in the open, but a few can be pretty tricky to spot at times. But even then, Paldea is so big that it's definitely possible you'll just miss a bunch of these. Heck, even with a guide, it can be tedious to unseal these 4 legendaries as you might not remember which stakes you pulled out, potentially requiring you to fly to the spots you've already visited. Maybe that's more tedious than difficult, but without that, it's not a walk in the park to acquire these 4 awesome legendary Pokemon.
I recall having had an aggravating time finding those stakes until I ended up just deciding to whip out a guide. That made it a lot easier, but the point is that without one, it would be just so hard, like you said. However, there's but a single cool dude that is the absolute rarest Pokemon to find in Scarlet and Violet, and it is that money-hungry man himself, Goldango. You need 999 Gimmighoul coins to evolve the aforementioned Pokemon, and that's just not an easy task, regardless of what you think or you're told. While there are plenty of Gimmighoul around the region that will give you a few coins when you run up on them, and of course, there are some that are just static encounters that you can either battle or catch, they really only give you about 50 at a time on average, and that doesn't mean this is going to be easy. The Gimmighoul are located at every watchtower in the region, as well as other random areas like cliffsides and whatnot, but they don't always respawn every day. That makes things infinitely more aggravating. Wouldn't you agree, Collector?
Oh, definitely. And while there are enough spawned initially out in the overworld for you to hit the amount of coins you need, you'd still need to find 80% of those to hit your 999 coin goal, which will take some real time no matter what. Unless, of course, you hit that 0.1% Gimmighoul that gives you 777 coins, but that's not super likely. Also, sure, you have a plethora of roaming Gimmighoul around Paldea just begging to give you coins, but most of them are giving you like 2 or 3 at a time, which is really just pennies on the dollar. Similarly, you have a small chance to have a roaming Gimmighoul that gives you 1 or even 200 coins at once, but again, not super likely. It's super weird though, because how on earth is this Gimmighoul carrying that many coins, and how do they expect you to carry them? It's all just silly, and for what? This powerful string cheese man? What does it have over the people and Pokemon of Paldea?
The real question is why in God's name is that roaming form all over Pokemon Go? Why is it only choosing to mess with people now? I understand the easy answer is, hey, it didn't exist, idiot! But still, in the context of the Pokemon world, what do these Pokemon want, really? I'm not too sure, but I'm going to say that we had a very solid choice here in our number 1 spot. These truly are rare Pokemon, and Paldea has its fair share of them.
I'm sure some of you could swap around the order with some of these Pokemon, and I think that's fair, but I feel the Pokemon that are just on the list are really valid. But tell us, did we absolutely nail this list, or do you feel that there are some far more rare Pokemon in Paldea that we missed? Definitely be sure to let us know in the comments below. So I will take my exit by saying, I'm Collector Dexter.
And I'm the Prime Directive.
And we will see you all next time.